And starting stream. Oof. Not up for a good start on this stream. I'm on internet. Okay, starting stream at 3, 2, 1. Facebook, we're live on Facebook. YouTube, we're live on YouTube. Twitter, we're live on Twitter. DLive, we're live on DLive. And we're waiting on Twitch. Come on, Twitch. Twitch, we're live on Twitch. Hello, peeps and poops. This is Lubaloo transmitting at 52 Hertz. Make no mistake, this is a 52 Hertz transmission. All right, so we're going to be reading the Bible for 1 hour, continued at Genesis 37:12, where we left last time. So I tried to, fix this camera, see how overexposed it is, but nothing much I can do about it because I need the light in order to read. Last time I tried to cut it out, it didn't work. So I figure reading was going to be more important. So one day I'll have a Bible cam where the camera's going to sit here and then you're going to read exactly what I'm reading. But I need a camera that has good zoom. Today, it's not that day. All right, let's continue. Joseph sold his brothers. Oh, I'm sorry. Joseph sold by his brothers. Okay. So let's see. All right. So on the last episode, Joseph, which is the son of Jacob, he he was favored, and so his dad made him a cloak, some robes, and it had a bunch of colors. I assume an awesome design. And the other brothers notice and they didn't like that. Of course, they get jealous. People get jealous. But on top of that, Joseph does a kind of like a tone deaf move. So he has a dream that everybody, his father, his brothers, they're kneeling in front of him. Okay, that was his dream. So instead of keeping his mouth shut, as not to incite envy, he runs his mouth. And then it happened again when he had another dream. He just goes and, I'm not going to say he boasts about it, but I mean, could be a humble brag, could be just, a tone deaf move. Anyway, so let's continue. Now his brothers went to pursue their father's flock near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." And he said to him, "Here I am." So he said to him, "Go now, see if it's well with your brothers and with the flock, and bring me word." So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a man found him wandering in the fields. And the man asked him, "What are you seeking?" "I am seeking my brothers," he said. "Tell me, please, where they are pasturing the flock." And the man said, "They have gone away, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. All right, so from what I gather, these hold on a sec. That's a little bit. See, I had on exposure on auto, and this is what happens. See that? Now I know you still can't read the words, obviously, but at least it's not as bad. See, at least it's not as bad. Anyway, so from what I gather, so this shepherd business, you actually have these satellite herds, right, from like your main camp. You got a main camp, and then you send your shepherds, and the herds could be many days away from you, like really far away. So it's not something that it's, you're here, your tent is here, and then you go outside and there it is. Talking about the shepherds being really far away in the middle of nowhere. Oh, sorry, I was getting a glitchy camera. So it's just you, the shepherd, and you're in the middle of nowhere. You're miles and miles away from base camp, just pasturing the herd. So it's actually, it's not something that is as easy or as casual. That's what I'm getting from this. As a matter of fact, his brothers are so far away that he can't go directly to them, you know. So I think in a situation like that, yeah, that will have to depend a lot on God to guide them, because they actually don't have any more protection besides themselves, and that's it. It's just them in the wilderness, basically. They saw him afar, and before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we will say that a fierce animal had devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams." Those are the dreams that everybody was kneeling in front of him and stuff, and he went and run his mouth. Okay, like I said, it was either like humble bragging or just like tone deaf bonehead maneuver, because stuff like that would incite envy, and that's exactly what we see here. Um, but when Reuben heard of it, he But when Reuben heard of it, he rescued him out of their hands, saying, "Let us not take his life." And Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hand to restore him to his father." So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe and the robe of many colors that he wore, and they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. Okay, so most likely, these pits, you know, most likely like some sort of trap or something, for like big animals. But I'm not sure. Then they sat down to eat, and looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their hands behind, with the camels bearing gum, balm, and myrrh, on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers listened to him. The Midianite traders passed by, and they drew Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. They took Joseph to Egypt. Yeah. So, no, like just with impunity, just like, can you imagine, Joseph saying, "No, I'm his brother, I'm no slave." The slavers don't care. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, oh, I didn't know that Reuben didn't know. He tore his clothes and returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone, and where shall I go?" Then they took Joseph's robe and slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe in the blood. And they sent the robe of many colors and brought it to their father and said, "This we have found. Please identify whenever it is your son's robe or not." And he identified it and said, "It is my son's robe. A fierce animal had devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his garments and put sackcloth on his loins, and mounted and mourned for his son many days. So the whole tearing clothes thing, I think it's like some kind of custom when it comes to mourning. When you're gonna mourn a tragedy, a loved one dies, that sort of thing. Because his dad did it, and then when Reuben came by, he didn't see him in the pit, and I guess he didn't know about the plot, like Judah's plot, to like sell him. He tore his clothes as well. All his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, "No, I shall go down to Sheol to my son, mourning." Thus his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. What does a captain of the guard need with a shepherd? With a shepherd slave? Judah and Tamar. It happened at this time that Judah went down from his brothers and turned aside to a certain Adullamite, whose name was Hirah. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. He took her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son. And he called his son Er. She conceived again and bore a son, and she called him his name Onan. Yet again she bore a son, and she called his name Sedah. Judah was in Chezib when he bore him. Canaanite wife. And Judah took a wife for his first son, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, Go into your brother's wife, and perform a duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring of your brother. So this is the kind of like the third or fourth time that I see this sort of reproduction by proxy, where you can have a family member or a slave reproduce for you. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So whenever he went into his brother's wife, he would waste the semen on the ground, so as not to give offspring to his brother. And what he did was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow in your father's house, till Shelah my son grow up. For he feared that he would die, like his brothers. So Tamar went and retained in her father's house. So I think that is a maybe that's a the violation of be fruitful and multiply. Or it could be because he broke that custom. Kind of like that responsibility. In the course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. When Judah was comforted, he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers. He and his friend Hirah, the Adullamite. And then Tamar told, Your father-in-law is going up to Tamar to shear the sheep. She took off her widow's garment, and covered herself with a veil, wrapping herself up, and sat at the entrance of Enaim, which is so the road to Timah. For she saw that Shelah was grown up, and she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He turned to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me come in to you." For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What would you give me that you may come in to me?" This is getting pornographic already. He answered, "I will send you a young goat from the flock." And she said, "If you give me a pledge until you send it." He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" She replied, "Your signet and your cord and your staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her, and went in to her, and she conceived by him. Then she arose and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. So basically, she tricked him into giving her offspring. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend, the Adullamite, to take back the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. And he asked the men of the place, "Where is the cold prostitute who was at Enaim, at the roadside?" And they said, "No cold prostitute has ever been here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I have not found her." Also, the men of the place said, "No cold prostitute has been here." And Judah replied, "Let her keep the things as her own, or we shall be laughed at. You see, I sent this young goat, and you did not find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been immoral. Moreover, she is pregnant by immorality." And Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." As she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law, "By the man of whom these belong, I am pregnant." And she said, "Please identify whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff." Then Judah identified them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah." And he did not know her again. When the time of her labor came, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, "This one came out first." But as he drew back his hand, behold, his brother came out and said, "What a breach you have made for yourself." Therefore his name was called Perez. Afterward, his brother came out with a scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was Zerah. Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard in Egypt, had brought bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. He was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge. And because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. Very nice. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. And after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is no greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her or to be with her. But one day he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was there in the house. She caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house. And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her household and said to them, "See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And as soon as he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled and got out of the house." Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home. And she told him the story, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came in to me to laugh at me. But as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment beside me and fled out of the house." False accusations. All sorts of shenanigans. As soon as his master heard the words of his wife, spoke to him, "This is the way your servant treated me." His anger was kindled, and Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. And he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him steadfast love, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. Man, this guy's like the ultimate manager. Joseph interprets two prisoners' dreams. Sometime after this, a cupbearer of the king of Egypt and his baker committed an offense against their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard. In the prison where Joseph was confined, the captain of the guard appointed Joseph to be with them. And he attended them. They continue for some time in custody. And one night they both dreamed, a cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison. Each his own dream, and each dream with its own interpretation. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were troubled. So he asked Pharaoh's officers, who were with him in custody in his master's house, "Why are your faces downcast today?" They said to him, "We have had dreams, and there is no one to interpret them." And Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me." So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph and said to him, "In my dream there was a vine before me, and on the vine there were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossom shot forth, and the clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Then Joseph said to him, "This is its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office. And you shall place Pharaoh's cup in his hand as formerly, when you were his cupbearer. Only remember me when it is well with you, and please do me the kindness to mention me to Pharaoh, and so get me out of this house. For I was indeed stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me into the pit." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, "I also had a dream. There were 3 cake baskets in my hand, and in the uppermost basket there were all sorts of baked food for Pharaoh. But the birds were eating it out of the basket on my head." And Joseph answered and said, "This is the interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat the flesh from you." Oof. Damn. Kind of brutal. On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants and lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restores the chief cupbearer to his position, and he placed the cupbearer's Pharaoh's hand. And he placed a cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Telling you, you do things for people, forget. Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dreams. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile. And behold, there came up out of the Nile 7 cows, attractive and plump, and they fed in the red grass and the reed grass. And behold, 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came out of the Nile after them, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. And the ugly thin cows ate up the 7 attractive plump cows. And Pharaoh awoke, and he fell asleep and dreamed a second time. And behold, 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing in one stalk. And behold, after them sprouted 7 ears, thin and blighted by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump, full years. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. So in the morning his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all his wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, I remember my offenses today, when Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard. We dreamed on the same night, and he and I, each having a dream with his own interpretation. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, giving an interpretation to each man according to his dream. And as he interpreted to us, so it came about. I was restored to my office, and the baker was hanged. The Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they quickly brought him out of the pit. And when he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it say of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, it is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, behold, in my dream, I was standing on the banks of the Nile. 7 cows, plump and attractive, came out of the Nile and fed on the reed grass. 7 other cows came up after them, poor and very ugly and thin, such as I had never seen in all the land of Egypt. And the thin, ugly cows ate up the first 7 plump cows. But when they had eaten them, no one would have known that they had eaten them, for they were still ugly, as in the beginning. Then I woke. I also saw in my dream 7 ears of growing on one stalk, full and good. 7 ears, withered, thin, and blighted by the east wind, sprouted after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good years. And I told it to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are 1. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blighted by the east wind are also 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown to Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. But after them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land, and the plenty of the unknown in the land by reason of the famine that will follow, for it will be very severe. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God, and God will surely bring it about. Now, therefore, let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. The Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of plentiful years. And let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities. Let them keep it. That food shall be reserved for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to occur in the land of Egypt, perish through famine. Joseph rises to power. This proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find a man like this in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards to throne will I be greater than you." And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his hand and put it in Joseph's hand, and clothed him in garments of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. And he made him ride in his second chariot, and they called out before him, "Bow the knee." Thus he set him over all the land of Egypt. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and without your consent, no one shall lift up a hand or foot in the land of Egypt." And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphenath. Hold on. Zaphenath Paneah. There you go. Zaphenath Paneah. And he gave him in marriage Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. So Joseph went out over the land of Egypt. So basically made him his right-hand man, and gave him a priest's daughter to marry. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 plentiful years of the earth produced abundantly. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which occurred in the land of Egypt, and put the food in the cities. He put in every city the food from the fields around it. And Joseph stored up grain in great abundance, like the sand of the sea, until he ceased to measure it, for it could not be measured. Before the year famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph. Asenath, the daughter of Potipherah, priest of On, bore them to him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's house. And the name of the second called Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Priest of On, I never heard. Is that an Egyptian god, priest of On? Or maybe it's maybe On is the name of a place or a temple. Was a priest of the ancient Egyptian town of On. I had an airplane mode this whole time. Oops. So I cannot find any extra biblical sources on the priest of On. Hmm. Okay. I'm lost. All right. Yeah, he was 30 years when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. The bounty was so plentiful that it could not be measured. Before the year of the famine came, 2 sons were born. Okay. Okay. Potipharah, priest of On. Okay. Ephraim and what was the other one's name? All these Manasseh. The 7 years of plenty that occurred in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began to come. As Joseph had said, there was a famine in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph. What he says to you, do." Ultimate Manager. So when the famine had spread all over the land, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians. For the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the earth came to Egypt, to Joseph, to buy again, because of the famine was severe over all the earth. Oh, okay. So this is like a global famine, which I didn't realize. I only thought it was just like an Egypt thing. But right here it says that the famine was universal. Joseph's brothers go to Egypt. While Jacob learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another? Why are you standing there? Why do you look at one another?" And he said, "Behold, I have heard that there is grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die." This is as cheeky as I've ever seen the Bible get. Why do you look at one another? So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt, but Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he feared that harm might happen to him. Thus the son of Israel came to buy among others who came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Yeah, it was all over the place. Now Joseph was governor over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land. Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the ground. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he treated them like strangers and spoke roughly to them. "Where do you come from?" he said. They said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dream of them. Oh yeah, the dream of they were bowing before him. The one that, he just went and blabbed. And he said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." They said to him, "No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been spies." He said to them, "No, it is the nakedness of the land that you have come to see." And they said, "We, your servants, are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the younger The youngest in this day with our father is with our father, and one is no more. But Joseph said to them, It is as I said to you. You are spies. By this you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother while you remain confined, that your words might be tested, where there is truth in you, or else, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. And he put them all together in custody for 3 days. Ooh. You know, just not being a good person has consequences. On the third day, Joseph said to them, Do this, and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined where you are in custody, and let the rest go and carry grain for the famine to your households. And bring your youngest brother to me, so your words will be verified, and you shall not die. And they did so. Then they said to one another, In truth, we are guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the distress of his soul when he begged us, and we did not listen. That is why this distress has come upon us. And Reuben answered them, I did not tell you not to sin against the boy? Did I not tell you not to sin against the boy? But you did not listen. So now there comes a reckoning for his blood. They did not know that Joseph understood them. Oh, that's right, because they thought he didn't speak Hebrew. He thought that he was an Egyptian. Then he turned away from them and wept. And he returned to them and spoke to them. And he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain and to replace every man's money in his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. This was done for them. Then they loaded their donkeys with their grain and departed. And as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his money in the mouth of the sack. He said to his brothers, My money has been put back. Here it is in the mouth of my sack. At this, their hearts failed them, and then turned trembling to one another, saying, What is this that God has done to us? When they came to Jacob, their father, in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them, saying, The man, the Lord of the land, spoke roughly to us and took us to be spies of the land. But we said to him, We are honest men, we have never been spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more, and the youngest in this day with our father in the land of Canaan. Yeah, that's Benjamin. Then the man of the Lord of the land said to us, By this I shall know that you are honest men. Leave me one of your brothers with me, and take grain for the famine of your households, and go your way. Bring your youngest brother to me, then I shall know that you are not spies, but honest men. And I will deliver your brother to you, and you shall trade in the land. As they emptied the sacks, behold, every man's bundle of money was in the sack. And when they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said to them, You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simon is no more. And now you would take Benjamin. All this has come against me. Then Reuben said to his father, Kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you. But he said, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm should happen to him on the journey that you are to make, you would bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol. I think Sheol is like hell. All right, we're gonna wrap it up right there. Things are getting spicy. This right here. There you go. Lots and lots of shenanigans in the Bible. Man, this chapter is spicy, you know. Anything from Jacob down is just, you know, pretty porny, I would say. Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. If I don't see you, just remember to always take care of your business, and I'll see you next time.